Welcome back, movie buffs. Today we're diving into one of the most unsettling psychological thrillers in recent memory, Deep Water, 2022. Imagine being married to someone who openly flirts with, and even dates, other people, and you let them. Out of love? Or something darker? But before we unravel this twisted tale of desire and deception, make sure to smash that subscribe button and ring the bell for more intense movie recaps every week. Ready for a slow-burn thriller where love turns lethal? Let's get into it. The film opens with Vic, played by Ben Affleck, riding his bike along peaceful forest trails, heading home to his stunning wife, Melinda. Inside, their daughter Trixie asks the nanny, Alexis, to play her favorite childhood song. Melinda, clearly irritated by the tune, tells Trixie to turn it off, but the little girl just keeps singing along. Later, as the nanny takes over, Vic and Melinda get ready to head out for the evening. Melinda playfully asks Vic what he thinks of her outfit, and after a quick exchange, she goes with his suggestion. Once they arrive at their friend's dinner party, Vic mingles with the guests, making small talk and keeping up appearances. Meanwhile, Melinda is clearly waiting for someone else, her latest fling, Joel. As soon as he arrives, she doesn't bother hiding her intentions and rushes to hug him. With Vic watching, she walks right up to Joel and pulls him aside. Moments later, Vic catches sight of them kissing. Melinda sees her husband watching, but doesn't seem to care, and keeps relaxing like nothing happened. A woman walks over to Vic and tells him everyone is staring at his wife, wondering why he never says anything. While the pair were chatting, the party host, Miles, interrupted to let them know Melinda had climbed onto his piano. Vic heads into the room and finds her playing in front of the guests, who seem to enjoy the show. He watches her closely, smiling the whole time. Then Joel walks up and Vic thanks him for keeping Melinda company. Out of nowhere, Vic mentions a man named Martin who used to spend time with Melinda too and says he killed him. Joel gets nervous, not sure if he's serious. Vic just smiles and walks away without explaining. Joel quietly leaves the party without even talking to Melinda. Later that night, Melinda asks Vic what he said to Joel, but he avoids the question and won't tell her. When they get home, Vic is paying the babysitter when Melinda walks by without a top on. Embarrassed, Vic apologizes for her behavior. Later in the bedroom, he helps rub cream on her back and they talk about Joel. Melinda admits she picked Joel because she likes who she becomes around him. When Vic tries to get close, she shuts him down and tells him to leave and close the door behind him. That's when it becomes clear they sleep in separate rooms, and things aren't great between them. Vic spends his time in a little room where he keeps a snail collection. The next morning, their daughter eats breakfast and plays her game while Vic gets ready for the day. We learn he's actually an engineer who designs military-grade computer chips. On the drive to school, Vic runs into a friend who jokes that people around town believe he got rid of Martin and hopes it's just a rumor. Later, Vic has breakfast with his friends and says the whole thing was a joke and he never hurt anyone. When he gets home, Melinda has already heard what happened and demands that he apologize to Joel. A few days later, Joel comes over for dinner. Vic greets him with a dry joke, saying it's just the two of them and invites him in for a chat. When Joel looks scared, Vic mentions that Melinda is home and waiting. At dinner, Joel says he's allergic to seafood, so Vic made him a special dish just for him. Joel eats a grilled cheese sandwich and casually mentions he's leaving town soon after landing a new job. Right at the dinner table, Melinda flirts with him openly and says she and Vic might come visit. Instead of eating the seafood Vic carefully prepared, she reaches over and takes Joel's grilled cheese. The mood turns awkward and Vic feels completely shut out. He quietly excuses himself to wash his hands. Melinda then sends him off to read Trixie a bedtime story. While Vic spends some sweet, quiet time with his daughter, Melinda stays behind with Joel. As Vic tucks Trixie in, he starts to suspect what's happening downstairs. So he goes into the kitchen and deliberately starts making noise with the dishes to interrupt them. Melinda comes in, tells him to leave the mess and that she'll clean up in the morning, then hands him a glass to take to their guest. When Vic walks in, Joel asks him to apologize for his creepy joke about Martin. But Vic calmly tells him there's nothing to apologize for, because what he said was completely true. Then he coolly lets Joel know his cab has arrived and it's time for him to go. The next morning, the family heads out on vacation and meets a new writer. During a conversation, the writer finds out what Vic does for a living and criticizes his military work, saying his technology contributes to violence and death. When the writer hears Vic's full name, he suddenly says he knows who he is, the guy who killed Martin. Vic gives him a cold, silent stare, but the other guests laugh it off as a joke, and the group heads to the dance floor. Then Vic does something that catches everyone off guard. He asks Kelly, the writer's wife, to dance. She happily agrees and the two of them go out onto the floor. Vic's friends are stunned, whispering among themselves since none of them has ever seen him dance before. Melinda watches from the side, clearly jealous. On the drive home she brings it up. Melinda decides to do something nice for her husband, and they continue when they get home. She decides to be affectionate with Vic for once. The next morning, they're at their daughter's school watching her game when Vic gets a call from the bank. The caller says there aren't enough funds in Melinda's account to cover a check she wrote. When Vic asks what it was for, he's told it was for piano lessons. Curious, Vic tracks down the piano teacher and finds him performing at a bar. Sitting nearby is Melinda, clearly on a date. Vic watches for a moment, then quietly heads home. In the bathroom he finds her ring left behind. Later that day the news reports that Martin's body has been found. He had vanished without a trace. That night, Melinda stumbles in drunk and casually starts talking about her new friend. Vic tells Melinda that Martin's body was found and sadly he's dead. The next day Vic brings home a dog as a gift for their daughter. On his way back he spots the same piano teacher walking down the street with a bouquet of flowers. Later at lunch that same bouquet shows up on their dining table. Annoyed, Vic picks it up and throws it in the trash. While out at a restaurant with a friend, they talk about how the gossip has finally died down now that Martin's killer has been found. Vic casually compliments the musician's piano skills and tells his friend he's Melinda's new teacher. That night, Melinda is seen riding in a car with the musician, and the guy looks thrilled to be spending time with her. The next morning she walks in through the door and Vic is waiting. He asks why she didn't come home last night, and she openly admits she slept with the musician. Vic tells her to stop seeing him, but Melinda pushes back, saying he never gives her the attention or passion she needs. Vic says he still loves her, but she turns and goes back to her room without another word. The next day the neighbors gather for a pool party and play games together. Even the musician gets an invite. Melinda introduces him to the group as her piano teacher, Charles. He starts playing by the pool and everyone seems to be enjoying themselves, except Vic, which doesn't go unnoticed by the writer. Melinda keeps dancing, then walks over to Vic and playfully brushes up against him with a flirty smile. He doesn't stop her and even seems to enjoy it. After that, she formally introduces Charles to Vic. As the evening winds down, Vic sees Melinda and Charles getting close again. While everyone jumps into the pool, Melinda splashes around with Charles, laughing and having fun without a care in the world, even though it's clear her husband is uncomfortable. When it suddenly starts to rain, the guests all rush out of the pool, leaving just Vic and the musician. Vic heads into the house where everyone's gathered to get out of the rain. The writer notices that Vic came back alone. Charles is nowhere in sight. While grabbing a cookie from the table, Vic accidentally burns his hand. Meanwhile, Melinda starts looking around for Charles and eventually sees a body floating in the pool. Chaos breaks out as they pull him out and call for an ambulance. Vic tries to revive him, performing chest compressions, but it's too late. When the police arrive, they begin asking questions, and Melinda immediately accuses Vic of killing him. They take her into another room for a private conversation while the writer quietly recalls who he saw last with Charles. After some questioning, the detective speaks with Vic and ends up believing it was just an accident. Later at home, Vic and Melinda try to have a conversation. She explains why she's not scared of him, and Vic seems oddly content with her answer. Trying to clear his mind, he goes for a bike ride and thinks back on the pool incident. He notices a car trailing behind him. After dropping Trixie off at school, Kelly approaches him in the hallway and warns that her husband is pushing the detective to believe Vic was responsible for what happened. She says she doesn't agree with him and wants to give Vic a heads up. Vic then invites Kelly and her husband over for dinner to address the situation. Vic decides to show the writer his snail lab and uses the moment to ask him to stop spreading false stories about him hurting the musician. The writer says he's convinced Charles was drowned, but agrees to drop it if Vic takes a lie detector test. Vic agrees, which catches the writer off guard. Later, while walking down the street, Vic notices the same car that's been following him. He looks inside and sees a camera lens on the seat, realizing it's a private investigator. Later that day he walks into a bar and sees Melinda sitting with a man he doesn't recognize. When he tries to find out who the guy is, Melinda avoids the question and jokes that he's probably just a therapist. Vic isn't buying it and says he'll figure it out himself before walking away. Not long after, Vic shows up at the writer's place and confronts him for hiring a private investigator. The writer tries to deny it, but Vic pulls out proof, bank records showing the transfer. After Vic leaves, the writer ends up in a heated argument with his own wife over the situation. Meanwhile, Vic starts to notice that Melinda already has another new man in her life. Frustrated and suspicious, he decides to follow them and handle it himself. Later at home, Vic sits down with his daughter, and she quietly tells him that people have been saying he's the one who hurt the musician. Vic tries to reassure his daughter that the rumors are false, but she still doubts him and promises to keep quiet. After tucking her in, he overhears Melinda on the phone and realizes her new boyfriend wants to run off with both her and Trixie. Determined to confront the man, Vic invites him into his snail lab and meets Tony, an old friend of Melinda's. They tour the lab, then head back to the house, where Tony explains he builds eco-friendly homes. While they prepare dinner, Melinda casually admits she and Tony used to sleep together and brushes off Vic's reaction. When Tony suggests frying the snails, Vic warns that poorly cooked snails can be poisonous, and Tony quickly drops the idea. Melinda keeps flirting with Tony right in front of Vic while he clears the table. Later, Vic meets Tony while driving and asks him to check out a new piece of land, and the unsuspecting man joins him on a fast drive into the woods. Once they stop, Vic kills Tony, takes his documents, hides the body in the water, and drives away. Vic and Melinda return home with their daughter for dinner, but Melinda starts to worry when she can't reach Tony by phone. Vic calmly says he never saw him. Melinda doesn't suspect anything, and the next day the family goes on a picnic to the same gorge. While sitting together, Melinda warms Vic's hands, and he gives her a handmade scrapbook filled with photos of her. It's his quiet way of reminding her that he still loves her. Suddenly he hears Trixie's voice and rushes over, spotting something in the water, a body. Without letting her see it, he gently leads Trixie away. On the drive home, Melinda mentions she left her scarf in the woods, but it's too dark to go back. Vic tells her he'll return for it tomorrow. That evening, while Vic reads a book, Melinda walks in and wraps her arms around him, asking if he'll sleep in her room. They lie down together, and after a long stretch of distance, she finally tells him she still loves him. The moment turns intimate and they reconnect for the first time in a long while. The next morning, Vic rushes to the gorge to retrieve the scarf. Meanwhile, Melinda heads to the lab and notices something off with the snails. As she looks around, she stumbles upon Tony's ID and suddenly realizes what her husband has done. Vic reaches the river and checks the area to make sure no one's around. He wades into the water to hide any remaining evidence, unaware that the writer is nearby watching him. The writer walks up and casually asks what Vic is doing in the water, but as he gets closer, he sees a hand floating and quickly realizes the truth. Panicked, he runs to his car and drives off. Vic grabs his bike and races after him. At the same time, back at home, Melinda is packing her bags ready to leave. Trixie, upset by the idea of splitting up, throws the suitcase into the water and says she wants them all to stay home. Meanwhile, out on the road, the writer speeds around a bend, but Vic suddenly appears in front of his car. Swerving to avoid hitting him, the writer loses control and crashes off a cliff. Vic returns home from the chase and finds Melinda waiting. She tells him she found Tony's ID and papers. At that moment, Vic understands that she knows everything. And that's a wrap on our breakdown of Deep Water. What do you think about this movie? Drop your thoughts and reactions in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. If you enjoyed this recap, make sure to hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell so you never miss our in-depth movie analyses and thrilling reviews. Thanks for watching, and until next time, stay tuned for more edge of your seat content.